Hello everyone, this is the first of a series of Old Testament survey videos that I'm making. The goal of this is really to help you better understand the meaning and context behind the Old Testament. Now we will be going over this mostly as overviews. We will go into specific details on certain things, but for the most part it's overviews of certain books and concepts that we see throughout the Old Testament. I personally believe that you really can't understand um, to its full extent the Bible without getting a good foundation of the context behind the Old Testament. The Old Testament takes up over half of the Bible. There's a ton of things in the New Testament that reference the Old Testament. And you know, Jesus, the first time you see Jesus is in the Old Testament. Furthermore, Jesus was Jewish, so it's important to understand that Jewish background in order to understand everything that Jesus did. And you may be watching this and you have way more knowledge of the Old Testament than me, and that's fine. The goal of this is really for those who don't, to give them sort of a good starting point, a good foundation, so that they can continue to pursue it on their own. The Old Testament is very notoriously hard to read, hard to get into, so hopefully this provides that starting point, and hopefully if you have more knowledge than me, you can use that to help me with these videos. Now, this first video, I'm going to be giving kind of an overview of certain things, but I hope to make one video every week, maybe 5 to 7 minutes, just to give it to you in bite-sized chunks, so that hopefully you continue to pursue Old Testament knowledge.
So first off, we're going to cover the order of the Old Testament books. Is the Old Testament written in chronological order? Well, kind of. The Old Testament is first ordered by category, specifically three major sections: history, poetry, and prophecy. Now these are divided into five subsections, the first of which is Genesis through Numbers, which is known as the Torah. This is like the foundation for Jewish scripture and comes before all the other books. Joshua through Esther makes up the remaining history books, and it covers the timeline from the conquering of Canaan for Israel all the way until the exile. The poetry books include Job through Song of Solomon, and they also include the Psalms and other books of wisdom and books of praise like that. Now, Isaiah through Daniel make up what's called the major prophets. And then the remaining prophetic books are Hosea through Malachi, or the minor prophets. Now it's important to note here that Lamentations is actually written similarly to a poetry book, but it's included in the major prophets because it was probably written by Jeremiah. Now within these five subsections, the books are written in chronological order. So Job is written before Song of Solomon, Isaiah is before Daniel, Genesis is before Numbers, Hosea is before Malachi, and so on. However, there is some overlap around these, and there's a few books like Joel, which it's not really known exactly when it was written. Now, the important part of all this is that it's important to read, if you're reading through the Old Testament and you're trying to read it in chronological order, you don't read Esther as though it was before Psalms, because Psalms was written around the time of David, which would be like 2nd Samuel or into the Chronicles. Um, Whenever you're reading the history books, it's important to read the poetry and prophecy books that correspond to those on the timeline. That way you have a better idea of the context of the situation and the context of why those poetry or prophecy books were written. Okay, so next we're going to look into sort of a broad timeline of the world. And the reason for this is because with everything, with reading the Bible, with reading the Old Testament, context is key. And I really like to have that context better understood through visual aids like a timeline of the world like this. Now, this is according to biblical dates, and it's based on like timelines, like genealogies in the Bible and stuff. And a lot of people agree with this timeline. There's a lot of people smarter than me that can back it up really well that the world is about 6,000 years old. Now, this is one of the best resources for a six that argue for a 6,000-year-old world is Answers in Genesis, so I encourage you to check that out. But according to this timeline, You have three major sections of the world history that are three chunks of 2,000 years. So you have creation, Noah, and Abraham making up sort of the first 2,000 years. And then you have David and Solomon all the way up to Jesus. That's sort of the second chunk. And then from Jesus to the present, obviously. Now, what's really cool to me is how nicely this sort of is laid out. Like Noah is pretty much right smack in the middle of creation and Abraham, and then David is sort of right in the middle of Abraham and Jesus. And so we really just see that pattern and that symmetry even in the timeline of biblical history. But we're really going to be focusing closely on certain periods as we study very specific books in the Old Testament, but this is just a good broad overview. And then the Old Testament obviously covers the first 4,000 years, so from creation up to probably like 400 years before Jesus.
Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos to come. Hope this really ignites a passion for you like I have. The Old Testament is my favorite part of the Bible, honestly. So, looking forward to making more of these.